Welcome back, everyone. Well, navigating these uncertain times is certainly a challenge for everyone, especially for our kids, though.
Dr. Laura Saunders is a psychologist at the Institute of Living, one of the best places in America. She's joining us now with some advice on how to keep your children motivated. Hey, Doc, how are you?
Good afternoon. How are you?
Excellent. It's good to see you, as always.
Thank you for having me.
You know, Doctor, we were talking about this because both of our girls dance at the same place, and there's no competition this year, and a lot of sports, they might just be doing drills, no games, others have been canceled completely, and you say that's really hard for kids to get motivated because they don't really have a thing they're working for in these COVID times. So what do you suggest to get them off the couch and keep them motivated when there isn't a thing anymore?
Well, I don't know if I'd go with Scott's idea of hanging the $100 Peloton bills around the house and having them jump around. However, finding things for your kids to do is really important. And honestly, the biggest and most important part of so many of those activities that kids did after school was socialization. Socialization is such an important developmental goal for young children and really all children. So when they miss those activities, it's not that they're going to be future, Olympic skaters or ice hockey players or dancers, but it's the socialization. So finding ways to create more socialization is really so important.
You say try to create like a pod, right? Like where they have the same group of friends that are going to be close together. That way there's not that potential for the spread of COVID.
So sometimes I call it a pod, sometimes I call it a cohort, but it's basically meaning the same thing, which is create a pretty set group of friends, even as adults. And those are your people. And those are the people that you connect with and socialize with in a physically distant way if you need to, because that way it minimizes risk. It is so important for us to have connections outside of ourselves. I'm really worried about lots of folks that don't get that, and with schools even being hybrid, it's so limited, their amount of time in school and their amount of time to connect with other kids. So creating that cohort really makes it a little easier and reduces risk.
Right, and you say it's a struggle for parents. If we were trying to minimize screen time before, it might be harder now because all of these things that they had to go to might not exist right now, so they just want more time on their screens.
I was always the first person as a child and adolescent psychologist to say, reduce screen time, reduce screen time. But in the spring, I was like, let them do whatever they want. We just got to get through this. But this is long term, and we can't just let kids be on screens all the time. So we have to come up with more creative ways. And it might be jumping around the house for some dollar bills instead of using a Peloton, or it might just be encouraging them to get outside, creating a game night. Maybe, a couple of parents get together and they organize some outside games for the kids. We are so fortunate. I mean, we're in a bit of a drought, but this weather is gorgeous. So getting kids outside, keeping them active is so important because so many of these activities have been canceled.
Is there a set amount of time that is it 3 hours a day of screen time, or, is there a prescription for that?
It's really based on age. I mean, honestly, the least amount is possible, but during this time, kids are already on screens. Most of these schools are doing some amount of remote learning, and so they're already on screens for hours and hours a day. So at this point, to just reduce as much screen time as possible, and because a lot of those hybrid programs are getting out early, so they're done by 12 or 1 o'clock, get the kids outside, get them playing, get them being active on these gorgeous days, because there aren't any of those scheduled activities.
I will say that I think it's falling back on maybe how we all grew up with less structure. I notice my kids now wanting to just go out for a bike ride so they can go meet some friends outside. Or there's a jewel in this if we let it happen, where we can give kids some flexibility and some resilience and just get them outside doing the simple things that we all did.
Definitely. And I do agree, Kara, that we've become a little bit of an overscheduled society. So the more we can allow kids just to play outside. It doesn't really matter what they do. What we know is that imagination is such a critical component to a child's brain development. The more they create imaginary games or imaginary things to do, they come up with things to do, they create their own games with a few friends, the better for them, because it really just stimulates their brain.
Well, Dr. Saunders, you're a regular on our show now, and we're so happy to have you. Thank you so much for visiting with us today.
I look forward to being back next week.
Okay, we'll see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And still to come on this Wednesday afternoon of Better Connecticut, call them before you kill it. We're taking you to a place where you can learn to grow and keep growing a houseplant.
And it's Wednesday. That means, another thing we're going to kill. Recipe of the week. What fall classic will we botch today? Don't go anywhere, but it's back in 2.